How do you explain that? You can't. You literally cannot. Why do you need... What possible explanation could there be for needing £300 million to finance a business that has a total exposure to the market of 30? You can't do it. So, you know, but again, it happened.
But Leeson was more than the passive figure he portrays himself as. To get this money, he kept on declaring fake profits, but now on a phenomenal scale. In 1 week, he declared $10 million profit. It was something that no one had ever seen before, but Barings believed him.
I can't explain it because it's not a commercial reaction. I mean, a commercial reaction said, well, you know, how on earth is this man making this money? Nobody else on earth is doing it this way. It defies imagination. A trader would know that that could not be achieved. There was either something fundamentally wrong with the market, or the man was taking risks, very, very big risks. So how, and it's not just Peter Norris, but Peter Baring, the whole board looked at these results and appear completely to have believed them. I just don't understand it.
I was pleased at the success of that business over that period, of course. You know, Mad Hatter's Tea Party.
By now, Barings was scouring the world's money markets to find the money to fund Leeson. But on the 24th of January, they went over their overdraft limit with Citibank, and a meeting was called to discuss Leeson. Worries were expressed about the size of his positions, but the bank's executives agreed amongst themselves that Leeson was doing rather well. His profits were high, they told one another, precisely because of the Kobe earthquake. It had produced chaos in the markets, which Leeson was cleverly exploiting.
In retrospect, one has to say that virtually everything about that discussion was absolutely mad, and that we were living in a world through the looking glass where logic was apparent but was actually completely perverted. It seems completely bizarre. A group of rational, intelligent, experienced, competent people were dealing with the matter in a way which was totally at variance with reality.
You mean they were blinded by the profits?
You say, yes, it's a question of degree. I think it's more that critical faculties were less engaged than they might have been, to put it at least, because there were profits.
But even when the truth stared them in the face, Barings still kept sending Leeson money. The bank's auditors now discovered a £50 million loss which Leeson hadn't managed to hide. Using scissors and glue at home, Leeson concocted paperwork that showed it was a loan to another bank. He faxed it through to the auditors. He forgot that on the top would be printed, "From Nick and Lisa."
Completely ludicrous, you know, and it doesn't hold up to investigation, but it was accepted. I don't know how, but, you know, it was accepted.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm an unbelievable person. I don't know.
But then finally, on the 17th of February, a clerk working for Barings found strange discrepancies in Leeson's accounts. For 6 days, Leeson eluded him. On the 7th, Leeson decided it was time to go.
So I come up with this story about Leeson not being well and I needing to go home to see her. And I'd be back in 45 minutes. And we tie up a few loose ends that we had to do. And then we leave. I mean, it was a fight getting Lisa to leave. I'm telling her
that's a problem.
I told her it was a problem. I didn't go any further than that.
He said, you know, I need to have a chat. Fine. You know, so we had to drive in the car. And he said that he's under lots of pressure at work. If he didn't get away and think about things, he'd have a nervous breakdown.
That's how I rationalised it in the end to her, to get her to agree to come.
Sea heights on
We took some golf clubs back that I'd borrowed the week before to one of Lisa's friends. We went to a shop and picked up a deposit that we'd had for laser discs, picked that up. Had a cup of tea and some chocolate biscuits.
I went home, packed the suitcases, and we took off to the airport.
Good evening. Crisis talks have been going on all day at the Bank of England to work out a deal to save Britain's oldest merchant bank. Barings is facing bankruptcy after one of its traders lost nearly £400 million on dealings in the Far East. He has now vanished. The Bank of England is racing to arrange a rescue before the Tokyo stock market opens in a few hours' time.
Leeson and his wife had fled to a luxury resort on the Malaysian coast, Kota Kinabalu.
We just spent a normal weekend in Kota Kinabalu.
Did you tell Lisa?
No. Still waiting to see what the situation is. I never expected Barings to go past.
Did you ask yourself at that point why this had all happened?
No. It was, you know, a combination of errors. You know, I should have referred it to people. I didn't, and it escalated. I don't think that there is a simpler explanation.
Late on the Sunday night, the Bank of England decided it was impossible to save Barings. Next day, traders pushed the market down. Leeson's losses doubled, from over £400 million to £830 million in one day, and the oldest merchant bank in Britain was no more. 2 days later, Nick and Lisa left Kota Kinabalu for Frankfurt.
Did you talk on the flight?
No. No, we didn't talk. Actually, I don't really talk on a flight anyway. Wherever I'm going, I'll just watch the film and sleep. I'm not being funny, but I didn't want to be talking about it. I didn't want to know. I just didn't.
Why not?
Because I suppose I didn't want it to be real.
For a boy from Watford to bring a grand firm down, I mean, it was a social insult as well. It wasn't even one of their own kind. Which is where I suppose the smugness comes in, isn't it? It simply can't happen to chaps like us, in Barings.
Well, things like that didn't happen. I mean, just didn't happen.
You mean to Barings or to banks?
Well, it does happen to banks. Not always the same way, but it does. No, to Barings.
And we found one of Nick's photograph in the drawer, and we put Nick's photograph up, and we say, "Nick, we do respect you. He can do it. Who can do it? Nobody else can do it. To bring down such a big bank." And I remember he spoke to some of the traders, and they all say, "Oh, what would you like to be?" And he said, "I would never want to be rich. I want to be famous. I want to be well-liked." And so when things happen, we say, "Oh, Nick, you made it."
What would be your message tonight to Peter Baring if he's watching?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really have a message to Peter Baring.
I felt the Frost interview was very controlled. I think we're still probably seeing mirrors. And we're probably still seeing somebody who feels powerful in his ability to fool us. And is sustained by that.
And however naive and stupid this may sound, I was always working in the best interests of the bank.
I think he's a guy who is living out a dream, playing out his fantasy as the rogue trader, when in reality he's just an accountant cooking the books.
you keep making excuses. That's all we keep on doing, is making excuses. And sometimes I'm cheesed off we keep making excuses. And I think, why should we keep making excuses? You know,